Welcome to today's panel. It's clear that sustainable transformation in packaging demands innovation, lots of it, and there's ever-growing recognition that collaboration is key to shortening that time it takes to bring new materials and formats to market. Open innovation is something of a buzzword at the moment, but I find it's always useful to dig into the realities and complexities behind fashionable concepts and buzzwords like that. And I'm interested in getting a more concrete sense of how open innovation can work in practice. So I'm delighted to be joined today by three practitioners who can share the insights of their own adventures in open innovation. In April this year, Emerald Technology Ventures launched a fund that's focused on sustainable packaging. Beiersdorf and Henkel were among a handful of corporates to join the fund as founding limited partners. And I'm pleased to welcome the three key people from each of those three organizations to today's panel. We have Frederick Petit, who is partner for sustainable packaging at Emerald Technology Ventures. Dr. Janina Zippel, who's senior scientist for startup scouting at Beiersdorf, and Dr. Paolo Bavage, who is head of Henkel Tech Ventures. Welcome, everyone. And before we get started, I'd like to just remind everyone watching on LinkedIn Live that you're welcome to engage with the discussion as you follow it, share your remarks, discuss with each other, and of course, share questions if you have them for our speakers, and I'll try to put some of them to the speakers in the course of the panel. So, with no further ado, I would like to introduce, or rather ask our panelists to introduce themselves. Let's start with Frederick. Could you just tell us a little bit about who you are and what your role is?
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity, Tim, and thanks to the audience for making time available to listen in today to this important topic to drive sustainable packaging solutions. As you already picked up, I'm not French in spite of my name. I'm Dutch. I'm a chemist by education. I have a background in sustainability, in innovation, in materials and packaging, work both for corporates as well as for startups. And I joined Emerald Technology Ventures in January 2021, when Emerald Technology Ventures became serious about the idea of launching a new initiative around sustainable packaging innovation. And as Tim mentioned, this resulted earlier this year in the launch of a new initiative where next to Beiersdorf and Henkel Tech Ventures, we also have welcomed Chevron Technology Ventures and Waste Management, which now goes by the name WM, because waste management is something from the past. Waste is a new resource. And recently, we were also pleased to welcome Huhtamaki and Nestlé as new partners in our fund. I'm calling in today from my home office in the Netherlands, whereas my official office is in Zurich, Switzerland.
Thank you, Frederick. And let's turn to Janina. Could you just give us a similar short introduction?
Yes, thank you very much, Tim. Good afternoon to everyone. Thanks for organizing this exciting panel, exciting format. So my name is Janina. I'm a technology scout at Beiersdorf. I have a background in life science and pharmacy, working for more than 15 years in the personal care industry, especially also in the field of product development, active ingredients development. And now I have the chance to work for Beiersdorf to find new startups, new direct investment cases, but also find interesting funds to collaborate with along all our verticals we have at Beiersdorf. And as you know, our company, probably most of you know Beiersdorf quite well. It's a global manufacturer of personal care goods with iconic brands like Nivea, Eucerin, Hansaplast. And as we always say, we do not care only about skin, we also care beyond skin, which means we care for the environment, we care for the people. And that's why Beiersdorf sets quite ambitious sustainability goals. So we want, for example, we want to reduce our carbon footprint until 2030 to zero, so that we have a climate neutral production. We want to have about 30% of our plastic packaging from recycled sources until 2025. So we do a lot to achieve the sustainability goals, and open innovation and external collaborations play a crucial role to achieve these goals. But we also use our corporate venture capital fund with 50 million euros as one integral part to foster this innovation pipeline. And therefore, we're really happy to have already placed, for example, direct investments in a company like Salvalco, who's doing eco valves, but also collaborating and investing in funds like Emerald Technology Ventures to work together and to leverage this topic. And I'm really looking forward to talk a little bit more about what we're doing together.
Dan, thank you very much, and fantastic to have you here. And last but not least, Paolo, could you give us a short introduction? And we're especially delighted to have you on the panel because we were having some technical teething problems just seconds before we started. So it's a great relief to see your face there.
Yeah, can you now hear me well?
Yes, very clearly.
Okay, super. So my name is Paolo Bavai. I work for Henkel Adhesive Technologies. So Henkel has basically two phases. One phase is our consumer goods business, and the other phase is our adhesive technologies business, which is more the industrial business. Adhesives, coatings and functional coatings for industrial applications. A little bit also, some people might know the famous Pritt stick. Some certain things are also consumer stuff, but the majority of our products is industrial products. And we have a venture capital unit for our consumer goods business, which is Henkel DX Ventures. And we have me and my team, Henkel Tech Ventures, for our industrial adhesives business. Together, we have about 300 million euros under management. We do invest into material science opportunities and also digital business models which are related to materials. So in terms of sustainability, the company Henkel has a goal to be climate positive until 2030. So the original plan was 2040, and then we thought that's not ambitious enough, so we moved it to 2030. And sustainability has many different aspects for us, which is certainly beyond packaging. But packaging is a very large business for Henkel Adhesive Technologies. Here we invested, for example, in a company called Sapera. So one of the applications for our packaging business is flexible packaging. We are doing the lamination adhesive for laminating the plastic packaging with aluminum foil. This is, of course, very difficult to recycle. So we developed in Sapera because they have developed a technology to recycle those kind of packagings. And now we can offer our customers not only the adhesive to make the packaging, but also the recycling technology to recycle the packaging in particular. In this case, the first step, the post-industrial waste.
Thank you very much.
That's what we are doing. We're doing many other stuff because, adhesive technology is very diverse, but I stop here. Maybe just two more numbers. We are serving 800 different industries with roughly 100,000 different products. So we formulate by customer and by application.
Great. Well, that's a great introduction to all three of you. So in the course of this discussion, I'd like to find out some more details about your specific collaboration, why the three of you are in the room today, and also broadening that out to understand more about what this tells us about the potential and the challenges of leveraging venture capital to make open innovation happen more effectively. But let's start with kind of understanding how this got started. It's clear we already have an understanding of Henkel's and Beiersdorf's sustainability agendas and the kind of innovation strategies and needs that you have for this. But what was it about the potential for bringing venture capital and open innovation together to do something slightly different to the activities that you've already discussed? Frederick, maybe I could start with you. How would you describe the motivating factors at the start, the objectives that you had when you decided to form this?
Well, I love to hear you say open innovation and venture capital, because that's exactly what describes Emerald as who we are. We are an open innovation partner for many corporates, today some 40 plus from all over the world. And we help them scout and assess and aware of relevant startups developing new products, new technologies that could be relevant for these corporates. And yes, we are a venture capital firm, meaning whenever we see a good investment opportunity, we could decide that we use the capital that's committed by our limited partners to make an investment in such a startup, with the aim to help support the startup to become successful. With this, we also bring financial returns to our limited partners next to the strategic values, which I just described on the introductions and the collaboration opportunities. Emerald has been around for more than 20 years. We have been active on the industrial innovation scene, the clean tech, the green tech. And over the last few years, we have noticed a stronger interest from the industry, from our corporate partners, to law on specific sectors. So Emerald decided to launch a specific water fund, which is focusing on all the specific technologies and products addressing water challenges. We launched an energy transformation fund. And some 2 years ago, we recognized that there was a shift in the packaging space, from talking about the issue. Everybody recognized the issue. The FMCGs recognized the issue. The retailers recognized the issue. Consumers became more aware. Regulators became more aware. And there was a shift from talking about the issue to a willingness to address the issue. And that was the moment that also many of our corporate partners recognized that they did not have the answers available to address these challenges. And many of these challenges can be solved by their internal scientists and R&D and their own innovation people. But there was a strong realization that they didn't have sufficient awareness of what are promising technologies, what are promising startups that could help these corporates addressing their packaging challenges. So that was the moment that we said, it's about now, it's about time to launch this new initiative addressing the challenge related to sustainable packaging innovation. And from the feedback that we got, from the interest that we got, we feel that this initiative is timely and relevant. So that was our trigger to launch this new initiative and to work with our corporate partners and startups, more specifically, and launch this sector fund.
Thanks very much. And can you tell us a little bit about the scope of the projects that you're willing to invest in, Frederick?
Yeah, so our scope, what we call our investment thesis, is basically focused on two main areas. One is advanced materials and advanced industrial IT. And these are two areas where Emerald has been active for these 20 years. So it's building on strength, now focusing more specifically on the market of packagings. When I talk about advanced materials, it's low footprint. How can we reduce the footprint of the packaging materials that we use? This means you can make the packaging materials bio-based. You can make them based on recycled feedstock, mechanical recycled, chemical recycled feedstock. You can make them fiber-based. And it's not only carbon footprint, it's also water footprint. How can you reduce the water footprint, especially of paper-based packaging? But it's also how can you increase the functionality of the packaging? How can you do it? How can you secure that packaging does more than just contain, protect, and inform? And there are many new exciting startups developing packaging materials with increased functionality. And then it's the whole topic of advanced material solutions, allowing reuse or recyclability of plastics. And here it's not only about monomaterial flexible packaging solutions or about rigid packaging solutions, but here it also involves the adhesives that you use and Paulo can tell much more about it than I can, the labels that you use, and also the printing, ink, and resins that you apply on your packaging, which might enable, or when you use the wrong solutions, might also block the reuse, the cleaning, or the recyclability of the packaging. Next to advanced materials is the industrial IT, because it's not only a materials play, it's also what we see in industrial IT play. I mean, a lot of the packaging waste today is still out there, but it is too complex, too expensive, and too cumbersome to collect and sort and clean all this packaging waste. And not only packaging waste, it applies to all plastic and glass and paper waste. So what can you see as IT solutions? Applying sensors, applying artificial intelligence, applying new sorting techniques to facilitate faster and cheaper sorting of waste materials. But it's also the industrial IT, what we refer to as smart and connected packaging. Smart packaging tells you much more about the quality of the product that's being packed. There are now some new initiatives in the UK that they want to abandon the best buy date. Can you have smart packaging that tells you exactly whether the product is still okay to consume or not okay to consume? Connected packaging tells you much more about where in the value chain is your packaging. Is it time to refill? Is it time to collect? Is it time to... but also applying blockchain technologies in your connected packaging, because there's much more information about the product and the packaging that you can give along to the consumer. And the last part is IT solutions regarding and related to new business models. During the pandemic, of course, we have seen many new initiatives, direct to customer, product as a service, packaging as a service. We also have been seen a lot of cardboard boxes delivered at our front doors that are not being picked up. So what kind of new business models can we develop that packaging, primary packaging, secondary packaging can be reused, collected, and used over again? So those are the two areas: advanced materials and industrial IT.
Thanks very much, Frederick. So Paulo and then Janina, I'd like to ask you too, from your perspectives, and we've heard about your broader objectives and activities. What were the motivations in forming this partnership? What were you trying that's different from what you were already doing in your other investments and R&D activities?
So like Frederick, I also like very much to use the terms venture capital and open innovation in one sentence, because in the end, it's about open innovation. In the end, for us, venture capital is a tool for open innovation, like we have also other tools in place. Right? We do also supplier innovation, we do strategic IP management and so on. But venturing is for us a very important tool for open innovation. In the end, it's about the collaboration between our operating business and the startups. So we have 85 of these collaborations, not all in the area of sustainability, but a lot. And out of these 85 collaborations, we invested into 13 startups. So that tells you where the importance is and where the emphasis is from our side. So, we are, our adhesive business just turned 100 years this year. So it took us to grow and to build that 10 billion euro business, took us 100 years. We are real experts in all kinds of adhesives, for example, in the packaging area, but that does not make us an expert into recycling technologies. That does not make us an expert in technologies to allow repair of devices, for example. As you know, many smartphones, for example, are to a large extent with our adhesives glued together. For example, the display glass, the cover glass on the display. And there is this regulation coming up that the smartphone companies need to ensure that their devices are repairable. So you need to have some technology to open that bond and then after the repair to close it again. So these are new requirements and new demands for us where we don't have necessarily the technology for. And venturing, the access to startups, is for us very important to bring new technology to Henkel, which we could not have developed ourselves. And that is super important. It's new technologies and new business models which we could not have developed ourselves, but which would strategically make sense to us and where we need for strategic reasons the access to. So that's how Henkel is benefiting from these collaborations. And as you know, all collaborations only work if both partners are equally benefiting. So what we offer to the startups is access to our customer base, which is a real treasure. I mentioned the 130,000 direct customers we have, and then 2 or 3 million through distribution. So that's a treasure across 800 different industries. We offer access to our technical portfolio. We offer access to our global footprint. So if a startup, for example, in Germany would like to go to China, we can offer their infrastructure, offices, and so on until they have established themselves there. And we offer also access to our experts, like IP experts, like process engineers, and so on, in order to help and support the startup. So the idea is, and not only the idea, that's actually also what's going to happen, is that we, so these collaborations, get access to a new technology which helps us to establish new products, new businesses, and at the same time we enable the startup to grow much faster than they could grow without us. And that symbiosis is super interesting and attractive. Of course, you know, all these startups are not lining up in front of our door to work with us. So the question is, what is the kind of systematic way to get to know all these startups who could be interesting for us? And this is then a way how we partner with, for example, with Emerald Technology Ventures, that we participate from their deal flow, that we see the startups they are seeing in the in the related regions and in industries, and that they also help us to look at the startups in a more objective way. So, you know, in Henkel, and it's probably true also in other large companies, when you see a particular startup which is a good fit and has an exciting technology, you immediately fell in love with that startup. So you believe a little bit your own propaganda, and so you need a tool or a certain process to reach to an objective opinion about that startup, about the technology and about the business model, their management capabilities, and so on. And this is where Emerald Technology Ventures helps us a lot. So that's. But we have also other tools. Another interesting point for us is that with Emerald Technology Ventures we have, and Frederick mentioned the different companies who are part of that fund. It's really across the value chain, and that is also very important, because I'm absolutely convinced that in the area of sustainability, where we really have to resolve in a very speedy fashion large problems, that we are not able to do that ourselves. So we need to team up with other people along the value chain, because it's super important what is before us, after us, and then after, so that we have a view across the entire value chain. And with these partners, you know, representing different steps in the value chain, this is a very unique opportunity to have a holistic view on the industrial problems in the first hand, and then secondly also in order to develop potential solutions for these problems.
Thank you, Paolo, and you neatly segued to talking about the partners across the value chain. So you're doing my presentational work for me. Let's see how Janina can build on that perspective. I guess quite a lot of that chimes with your own perspectives and motivations. But yeah, would you like to carry on with that story.
So absolutely. So I can fully agree with a lot of things Paolo said that also apply to us as a classical strategic corporate venture capital fund at Beiersdorf. So using venture capital as a tool, as a vehicle to foster our innovation and to help probably interesting startup collaboration partners, for example, to grow their business is also our main ambition. But besides that, I want to add another dimension. So sustainability, especially sustainable packaging, is a field for us of many uncertainties. So we do not really know which kind of, for example, recycling technologies will make it in the market, will be able to scale it up, will have the right business models, what kind of regulatory implications we will have in the future, globally and also on a regional perspective. So working in open innovation, and especially also working with big funds like Emerald Ventures, gives us also the chance not only to find interesting startups to work with, but also to get access to a network of experts, to exchange with experts, and also to get access to a network of other investors. So as Frederick already mentioned, so also the investor consortium is nearly around the whole value chain. So we have the chance to also discuss more strategic topics from a more bird eye perspective, which really helps us also, beside finding concrete technical solutions, helps us also to do business decisions, to have, as Paolo mentioned, have Emerald Ventures as a sparring partner on discussions on several levels. And as everybody said before, so sustainability is a topic, is a long-term topic, something which will accompany us the next year for sure. So for us, it's also a long-term run. So working with Emerald with more than 20 years of experience in climate tech, that's really also a long-term partner for us. And I think what's special for Beiersdorf is that our venture capital fund and also our internal experts are very close. We work very close together. And as soon as we get ideas, is it strategic ideas, business ideas, or startup ideas, we can discuss this immediately, and we can also give our ideas, our judgment, our evaluations back. So we try to also add benefit to the fund management, to the fund consortium itself, but also to single startups. So we really try to create a dynamic in the market and the platform to also collaborate along the value chain.
Maybe it's, if I can chip in quickly, maybe it's fair to mention, I mean, that sounds like a perfect setup, and no matter of what problem we have, I mean, we will find a startup, we work together, and I mean, I think in all fairness, it's also important to explain that this was not always the case. So when we started Henkel Tech Venture, probably the original idea, we started probably 10 years ago in Henkel, the mindset was very different. I mean, I'm a bit older, so I have a longer career in the chemical industry, and I can tell you that 20, 30 years ago, the mindset in research in the chemical industry was, give us the problem, we will resolve it. So they get locked up in their lab, and then they come up with a solution or not. And if not, they said, no problem, we will still resolve it, give us another year and another year and another year. So I think it's what also happened is that companies are becoming much more conscious about what can they really do and what can they not do. And this is super important, that you don't fool yourself and that you don't perceive that as a weakness. So I'm also always trying to explain, and I explained it many times in the past, and now I have it not so often anymore to explain, but that venturing and venture capital and open innovation is not the competition for our own R&D. Because we can do stuff the startups could never do, and they could never imagine to do that. I mean, a top-notch lamination adhesive for flexible packaging, no way that a startup can develop that. So it's the venturing is really complementary to our R&D. And I think since we have that common understanding in Henkel, it works much better and much smoother. But it was seen in the very beginning as competition.
Yeah, maybe also to add on this, that's of course we face the same challenges most of the other big corporates in the past. But this also gets together with this topic we mentioned before, to partner up along the whole value chain, which is also new for us. So just take as an example, recycled plastic. Yeah, in the past we just worked with packaging producers to get our plastic packaging. Now we need recycled materials, which on the one hand are safe for consumers. They must perform like virgin plastic, but on the other hand, they have to have a good environmental impact or a low environmental impact. They have to be, from an economic standpoint, attractive, and the supply chain security must be given. So we learned it's not only about collaborating with our packaging suppliers. We have to really open up. We have to work with converters, with sorters, with recyclers, with technologies providers. And this is something which we would, these are technologies and approaches and business models which we would never develop inside at Beiersdorf, of course. So this is also something to open up, to broaden your focus, where platforms like corporate venture, venture capital funds like Emerald Ventures can help us to really look beyond, to also give our input, our value upstream and downstream the value chain, because we learned we can also, in the discussion with sorters or recyclers, we can also add value. Yeah. And this is something what we as a company, especially in the field of sustainability, learn. And this is also a kind of open innovation spirit. And there's no competition with the packaging technologies we have in-house. So, but this is, as Paulo said, that's also, it takes time, and it's a matter of mind change. But that's the only way for these kind of what we call future technologies, where we need this window on technology, where we have to understand what's going up in the market for the next 20 years. Yeah.
Thank you. And it's really interesting to hear all of you speaking about how something which maybe started with a narrower investment and technology scouting remit has unlocked greater dialogue and sharing of knowledge around a broader area of common requirements. And I'm interested in how that works. Do you have formal structures within the platform now where you're meeting to discuss your sort of higher level strategic headaches and desires, or is it happening in a kind of more organic way, that because you're connecting through your shared fund, that these bilateral conversations happen more often?
It's as I mentioned at the beginning, Emerald Technology Ventures is a Swiss-based company, so we are structured and we are professional. So it's organized for success. So the way we are structured at Emerald, we have offices in Toronto, in Zurich, and in Singapore. In many of those offices, we have what we refer to as sector specialists, so often with a PhD in a specific area, that are able not only to collect the pitch decks of a startup, but have the capability to read between the lines. Because every startup, when you see the deck, they're going to rescue the world, they're going to save the planet, everything will be fine. But you need to have the competences to read between the lines to see whether this is really something promising or something new. So for each of these startups, we make an assessment, a technology assessment, like Paulo also mentioned. We check the quality of the management team, the business potential, the business model, and also the attractiveness of the investment deal, so the terms and conditions. We have all that information in database, where we have more than 20,000 deals today as Emerald, and more than 1,300 specifically for packaging. And with each of our partners, so we have every month a monthly deal flow call. So we have one call with Beiersdorf, we have one other call with Henkel, where indeed we try to understand as well as possible what are their strategic needs for open innovation for packaging. And we select the startups that we believe are most interesting for them to discuss. And also people at the Henkel side and Beiersdorf side also look in our database and also highlight we want to discuss these specific startups because we want to know more. So that's how we organize the confidentiality part and the one-on-one business relationship. Next to that, we also have collaborative events. So last week, I had the pleasure to be in person with Janina and with Paolo because we had our biannual investor forum where we bring all our corporate partners together. And we discuss the status of the business, the status of the funds, but also we have CEOs of portfolio companies and of startups presenting themselves. And we also are co-organizer of the European Venture Fair, where we bring representatives of the corporate venture capital groups and venture capital teams together to exchange, especially on this topic, what is the role of venture capital? What is the role of corporate venture capital? And how can we collectively learn from each other and progress? And also discuss openly some co-investment opportunities. Because if you see an interesting startup, then it's not an exclusive one company that's making the investment. So often you try to syndicate with others, with some of the corporate partners together invest in this startup. And to the point that Janina mentioned earlier, sometimes we, at least for the packaging initiative, twice a year, we organize what we refer to as a sprint. So we select a specific topic. This year it was about paper packaging, a hot topic for the whole packaging value chain, and chemical recycling, a relatively new topic where everybody wants to understand what are the different technologies, what are the capacities. And there we bring the corporates together. They express their open innovation needs around this topic, and we select some 10 to 15 startups that we believe have promising technologies to address these challenges. And from these sessions, often we see there's an interest also for multiple corporates to collaborate together, because they see if we all support the same startup developing specific chemical recycling technology, that's a pre-competitive element. I think I can talk on behalf of Beiersdorf and Henkel. They will not build their own chemical recycling plants. That's not their core business, but they want to have access to. And that's why it's good that we have this collaboration, not only between the corporates and the startups, but also, as mentioned before, between the corporates from the full packaging value circle together. So it's organized. We have individual elements and we have collective elements in order to extract the most value from the relationship.
Thank you. And it's been less than 6 months since it launched. Perhaps it's premature to ask this question, but can you give us an update on the progress made so far? I don't know how much of this is commercially sensitive in terms of projects invested in, or any developments since the launch in April.
Yeah, so since the launch in April, I mean, one of the good news was that we have 2 new members joining us. So that was what I mentioned, Huhtamaki and Nestle. And we have a pipeline of others that are in earlier or more advanced diligence of our fund. That's one. This also allowed us to strengthen our team. So we recruited the packaging specialist in our Singapore office, also to build on our side the competence to be able to assess again all the different startups that we see. We have had a couple of startups that we have proposed to our investment committee. And for some of them, we are now in advanced diligence, and we might even expect that we make from this new fund our first investment later this year, potentially even 2 investments. Also, to put this into perspective, from this packaging initiative, we review and assess some 300 startups every year, but will only invest potentially in 3 startups. And that doesn't disqualify the 297 companies as bad companies. No, these could be great companies with great technologies that we are fully supporting for introductions to Beiersdorf, to Henkel, and to others, because they could be great collaboration partners for them. But at the moment that we review them, especially on financial conditions, they were not strong enough. And the two companies we are now looking into, we have reviewed them 3 times. So at first, we liked the technology, we liked the management team, but they were a little bit unsure about the business model. That didn't have enough traction yet in the market. And because we like them, we propose them to Henkel, to Beiersdorf, and to others to see, hey, what is your opinion? Do you want to test our products? We believe it's a great technology. And when we make an investment, then we make that to a large extent on financial criteria, because and that's the venture capital element of our business. We do want to make a return on our investment, also to make the financial colleagues of Janina and Paulo happy. They keep on telling me that they work with us for the strategic value, but we also bring some financial value. And that's also important for us, so we can recycle that capital again to make new investments long term. So expect more news to come before Christmas.
Good. Well, we'll be watching out for that, and we'll let our audience know if you let us know. Great. Well, that's been a great introduction to your activities together and your motivations. None of us intended to hold this panel today as just an advert for Emerald and the partners. What we wanted to do is to explore the concept in general and perhaps to promote the idea of using venture capital as a foundation to accelerate and improve the effectiveness of open innovation. So let's try to broaden this out to the wider learnings and insights that you can bring from, admittedly, quite an early stage of your collaboration. I'd like to ask all of you whether you have any insights at this stage about what you've seen about the potential, how it's confirmed the potential of this model, and also any challenges that you're seeing that you can identify, that give us ideas about how to do it better. How can we optimize these collaborations? How can we solve the challenges that we confront? Let's go to Janina first.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like everywhere in the startup world, it's always a challenge sometimes to bring the corporate elephant together with a startup gazelle. That's sometimes a little bit challenging. So sometimes we expect, for example, volume demands or certain quality criteria startups in an earlier phase, for example, cannot deliver yet. These are challenging. On the other side, sometimes also startups believe big corporates have unlimited financial and also personal resources and can help in each and every field of their business, which is also not the case, of course. This is, I would say, more a general thing if it comes to corporate venture capital, corporate venturing. In terms of sustainability and sustainable packaging, we see especially the challenge, as we said, so we will partner up now along the whole value chain, which also means that we also have to find sometimes a third party as an immediate as a partner in the middle. So if we work with a recycler or sorter, we also need another partner who's doing in the end the packaging for us from this recycler.
I think we've temporarily lost Janina. I think her connection may have dropped. I hope we get her back shortly, but let's just ask Paulo to build on that point.
So there's two sides. One side is the Henkel internal side, and one side is really the multi-collaboration side. So from the Henkel internal perspective, I have to say that.
Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes.
Hear you.
Sorry, Janina,
okay,
we lost you briefly.
Please go on.
No, I would say from an internal Henkel perspective, we as a group have sometimes to deal with some disappointments. So we have technology we find technology opportunities which are relatively close to our core business. As I mentioned, we are a producer of lamination adhesives. So the corresponding recycling technology is relatively close. to that technology and to that business. So it's relatively obvious what the strategic link is between these things. So when we find startups where the technology is an immediate fit to the core business, it's not a big discussion if we should pursue that or not. We have a little issue or maybe not a little issue, we have an issue in more explorative startup technologies and startup business models, things which might be not relevant today, but which might be the beginning of a certain trend and could be relevant in 5 years or in 10 years for Henkel. And that is much more difficult to argue about these things in the company. And this is really where I think Henkel needs to improve significantly to look also more at explorative collaboration and investment opportunities. From the collaboration perspective with the startups, I mentioned earlier, it's super important that this is a win-win relationship, that it's very clear what Henkel gets out of that collaboration and what the startup gets out of that collaboration. That is very important. In the collaboration itself, communication is important. Communication. So we are living in, shouldn't say 2 different worlds, but we are at least living in 2 different cultures, a corporate culture and a startup culture. So there is it's a good foundation for misunderstandings, and it's a good foundation for frustration and these things. So communication is super important. The startup should always understand why we do certain things as we do them, and what's the next, and what can they expect prospectively, and so on and so on. And on the other hand, it's also important that we understand why a startup is, for example, is reacting in a certain way. So communication and transparency is super, super, super important. The other thing is, and that is also to do with transparency, it's important to set common goals, milestones, that we don't just collaborate, that we have a clear plan, what we want to achieve and what the milestones on that way are. And then we can follow up with our business and the startup if both parties delivered to that project what they promised to deliver in the beginning, and if we are making the progress we are expecting to make. And if not, is it a matter that this is the wrong technology or the wrong business model, or is it just a matter of time, or what is then the root cause, and then we can discuss it. So I think this transparency, milestones, super important. It's also important from a portfolio perspective that we have collaborations in our portfolio with a relatively short-term success opportunity that we can show to our organization relatively soon why these collaboration models, why open innovation really makes sense. And we should have some topics which are a little bit more long-term and which will show hopefully success then later on. So I think these are the 2 things which I believe are very important when you do open innovation between partners who are not equal, but who should be treated equally. And I think that's that's the challenge, right? I mean, a corporate tend to be a little bit arrogant and ignorant, and the startup is always complaining about how slow corporates are. And I think if there is more mutual understanding why each other is working like they're working, this improves things massively.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, Nina, you were interrupted by technology. Let's let you continue what you wanted to finish.
Yes, sorry. So just maybe to mention one point, especially or 2 points related to the challenges if it comes to sustainability innovations and packaging, sustainable packaging. So we see several challenges in this field. So one is the unclear regulatory framework right now in sustainability, especially if it comes to consumer goods, consumer packaging. that's a big challenge for us. The market itself is still very segregated, so we have different startups popping up in different areas. So new business models, it's not consolidated yet, which is also a challenge for us to decide, okay, in which direction we will go. Which technologies will succeed in the market, that's what we discussed before. And one important thing is also the topic of compliance. So we have very, very strong compliance rules amongst competitors, which is very good on the one hand, but on the other hand, that's also something which can also block and hinder us, especially in this field of sustainability, where joint forces and joint activities are really crucial to bring topics forward. And so we sometimes joint corporations, joint initiatives don't get into force because we have these compliance issues, and therefore platforms like funds where we can exchange also in a more or less secure and predefined way are also a good opportunity.
Thank you. And Frederick, do you have any thoughts about challenges and learnings that you've had from this?
Yeah, I build on what Janina and Paulo said. It's definitely a cultural thing. I mean, agility of startups, pivoting is great. Sometimes startups also are a little bit naive and a little bit too enthusiastic, which they need to be. They need to really believe in their own concept. Sometimes we talk to corporates that have difficulties to collect their innovation needs together because they are not organized to have it at a central place. And sometimes corporates still have the not invented here syndrome. So they still rely on their own scientists and their own suppliers. And if you introduce a very promising startup from them, then they say, well, this is not in my objectives, this is not in my goals, this will take resources. So that's why it's important that whenever a corporate embarks on a corporate venture capital strategy, that it is well embedded in the corporate strategy and supported by the highest ranks. Because when you commit capital to a fund like Emerald or to a startup, it's to create the strategic and the financial returns. So that's what I see as the most important challenges. And what we try to do also is to bridge between those different worlds. As mentioned, we have 20 years experience working with corporates. So sometimes we also have specific sessions supporting corporates how to organize for success for their corporate venture capital activities, how to extract the value from a relationship with Emerald. And of course, when we make an investment in a startup, we very often are the lead investor. We take a board seat. We have many years of experience sitting on boards because startups do not only need capital. Our money ain't any better than anybody else's capital. But beyond the capital, they need big friends. They need corporates as suppliers, as manufacturing partners, as research developers, as customers. So we provide them that platform. And we have the coaching skills. We have the experience sometimes to see problems emerging or opportunities emerging from our global view before the startup realizes that. So that's what we try to offer, and I think we do offer to startups. It's the network, it's the coaching, the board positions, and the next to the capital.
Thank you. We are reaching close to the end of our allotted hour, and I'd like to take a couple of questions that I've seen coming through from the audience. Before that, I'm also looking at the quite active comments on this stream. I can see that there's a mixture of people watching the stream today. There are some packaging manufacturers. I can see some FMCGs. I've seen at least one investor, and I've seen more than one startup. Do you have any recommendations about this array of organizations? How should they consider getting involved either directly with you as collaborators or more broadly in considering activity in the open innovation sphere? Frederick, let's start with you.
Well, I think the most concrete action they could do is to join Innovation Horizon event in Amsterdam on November 15th. Is that correct, Tim? Is it November 15th?
Well, that's. I'm very grateful for your plug. We didn't arrange this beforehand, I have to say. I was going to make that promotional announcement at the end, but since you've already brought it forward, yes, we are holding a conference called Innovation Horizon in Amsterdam, 15th of November, and it's planning to bring together startups, R&D people, investors, FMCG, etc., to explore what kind of innovation we need in order to drive sustainable transformation in packaging and how we can accelerate it, and then also zooming in on specific areas of opportunity, including some pitches for startups to pitch their ideas. So indeed, I would very much welcome anyone who finds this conversation interesting and thinks it's an important area, whether you're an investor or a technology provider, and do get in touch with me if you're interested in speaking, pitching your startup, etc. And it would be great to see you there, Amsterdam. Details of that you can find on the Packaging Europe website or Packaging Europe LinkedIn. But my motivation for asking that question was not purely to, in fact, not at all to promote our own event. More broadly, having also attended our event in November, do you have any thoughts about the next steps? What should they think about doing?
No, so and I will be there also in Amsterdam, so it will be an opportunity to meet,
yes.
to meet in person. But normally I think you provide LinkedIn profiles. I already see a lot of LinkedIn messages popping up. So please, if you are a corporate, if you are a startup, and you feel like this is something that might be of relevance to you, then please reach out via LinkedIn, via email. Happy to entertain a discussion to see how you can set up a corporate venture capital group in your organization, or if you are a startup, then we are happy to engage with you, assess the offering that you have for a company, include you in our database, put you on the radar of our corporate partners. And when also the valuation and the terms are attractive, we are happy also to consider an investment opportunity. So from both sides, please do not hesitate to reach out, and happy to engage in a follow-up discussion.
Thank you.
Yeah, so maybe one remark. I think to be very honest and maybe a bit controversial, I don't think these days it's difficult for corporates to meet startups. I think there are tools around. We talked about also Emerald, what they do as a service to act as a kind of sounding board. From a corporate perspective, there are two things super important, critical success factors. One thing is to be extremely clear when to engage with startup companies. And we made the decision, we do this only for emerging markets or emerging technologies or emerging business models. Because if you have mature markets, then you should do M&A, to be very honest. Then you should buy market share and do M&A. You should not fool around with startups in that area. So I think it's all about the emerging stuff where you don't have that M&A target which you can buy. And the other thing is when you introduce a startup to the operating business, start at the top. In the beginning, we did start a little bit lower level because there were the people who were willing and volunteered to work with us, and then we were hoping that within their organization they can upsell the startup or a particular technology, and this did not work out. So we always start at the top, get the agreement about working with a certain startup, and then we can also involve the other people, the other colleagues who are actually then involved in the real collaboration.
Thank you. And we'll give a final word to Janina.
Yes, thank you, Tim. Maybe again as a final statement, so just open up, be open along the whole value chain. So we're really happy to talk with partners from all value steps. Try to get connected, and as Frederick said, so you can also find me on LinkedIn. You have my profile, and maybe just to let you know, the Bayersdorf Venture Capital group activities you can find under our Oscar and Paul website. So we have an own group with an own name. It's Oscar and Paul Venture Capital, but you find all informations on my profile. So happy to connect.
Thank you very much. I said I was going to ask two questions. I'm just going to ask one, which we can ask that has a very short factual answer, I guess. So, Frederick, you mentioned that over a course of a year you speak to, or rather you evaluate 300 startups. One of the audience members asked how many of those 300 you will actually speak to. Would you speak to them all, or is that kind of a later stage?
We speak to the vast majority. We have a large team of some 45 people within Emerald, as mentioned in the 3 offices, and for our investment managers and sector specialists, it's their main focus to identify and assess the most promising and startups. So whenever a startup is fundraising, they may reach out to us. Many of our deal flow comes directly from the startups. It's the CEO that hears about Emerald and says, "Hey, I'm the CEO of startup so and so. This is my pitch deck." The pitch deck tells us a lot, but often this is followed by a call with the CEO to get further information about the company. And when we really like the startup and we want to seriously consider an investment, then we make an due diligence team with one of the partners and financial specialist and a sector specialist, and then we'll have multiple discussions with the startups, with the full management team, with the supply chain partners to really assess the investment opportunity. But in brief, the vast majority of the 300 we talk to in order to get the best possible picture, also to being able to provide our corporate partners with the best possible information about how is our view of this specific target.
Thank you very much. Well, I had one more question. I'm going to ask the question, but we won't answer it. It's quite an interesting and provocative one, and I'm just going to leave it hanging for us to think about after we finish. And the question is as follows: one of the end goals of sustainable packaging should be the reduction in volume or usage of disposable packaging. How will venture capitals extract multifold returns on their investment while a startup tries to implement this? I say we'll just leave that hanging. I think it's an interesting one to have in our minds. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining in, for engaging, and I hope it's given you some thoughts about future possibilities and opportunities yourselves. As Frederick very kindly mentioned, we have our Innovation Horizon event on 15th of November. You can meet Frederick there. I'm hoping that Paolo and Janina will be able to come as well. It's co-located with another event, the IPEA Active and Intelligent Packaging World Congress. We've talked a little bit about smart packaging in this, and there's a lot of interesting innovation there to explore, so you can see both at the same time. Finally, I'm also, if you're not tired of my voice already, appearing next week at Fachpack in Nuremberg, where we will have on Wednesday, the 28th of September, a conference in the morning talking with CFlex and stakeholders about flexible packaging, circular economy. That will also be live streamed. And in the afternoon, I will be on the show floor talking to people who are working on paper bottles. So if you're in Nuremberg or you want to follow virtually, then please do join us next Wednesday. Details of all of the above you can find on our LinkedIn page and the Packaging Europe website. So again, thank you everyone for joining, and special thanks to our 3 fantastic speakers today, Frederick Petit, Janina Zippel, and Paolo Bavai. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you, Tim.